Welcome to Focus on Art. I'm your host, Barbara Cohenauer, and we're out here on Route 66 at Arrowoods. My guest for the evening will be Doug Jennings, and we're delighted that you joined us. Doug, welcome back to Focus on Art. We really appreciate being back at Arrowoods again today.
Thanks, Barbara. It's always nice to have Focus here at Arrowoods. We've done quite a bit since you last visited us. Shall I run through a few things that's been going on?
Oh, absolutely. We need an update.
Okay. On the building, as you recall the last time, we had the bottom paintings done. Now we've gone up top with the waterbirds and the Arrowwood emblems.
Oh, it looks great, Doug.
And then I think what we'll do is add a couple of more paintings back on each side of the building to kind of tie that in. The grate work that you see on the building was Wolf Road's old grate work, and now we've duplicated that. We have a guy who's built some more grates like that, and we're going to decorate those up and then have the whole front of the building in grate work. So I think it's going to come out pretty nice.
Wonderful. Well, lots of other things are happening too. They're happening on the inside. You've got some programs underway and so forth. You want to talk about those a minute?
Absolutely. A couple of things. Of course, we have silversmithing schools that we do on the weekends, and those are open to anybody. But also what we've done is started a program for Indians to get them introduced to silversmithing so that we can produce traditional Oklahoma silversmiths. And right now we have two fellows that's apprenticing with us, Ed Ratcliffe and his brother. So we're really excited about that program. And then, of course, we're going to try to bring artists out every weekend and have some kind of a demonstration on the weekends.
Okay, and this all kind of culminates in your big art show that you have in October.
Yes, and it was interesting. We've had two art shows. They've both been, really successful. And this year we're going to expand it to 2 days. We're also going to coincide. We found that Wolf Road's birthday is on October 16th. So this year we're going to bring that back into the art show and call it the Wolf Road Art Festival or something to tie that whole thing in. I think that'll be kind of exciting for a lot of people in Tulsa that remembers Wolf Road in the old building.
Oh, absolutely. Well, now, Doug, who are we going to talk with today?
Well, there's a couple. We're going to come in, we're going to talk with June Lee, and June is a Seminole, full-blood Seminole lady. And June does traditional Seminole patchwork, and she's going to take us through on how that patchwork is put together, what some of the patterns mean in the traditional sense. And some of the old patterns go back as far as, I guess, 500 years. So it's going to be interesting talking to June, and she teaches, plus she displays, and the Seminole are now forming a co-op to produce this clothing in Oklahoma. So I think we've got a rare find there. Then we'll chat a little bit with Ed Ratcliffe, who is at Rogers State College studying art, and of course apprenticing under me as a silversmith.
Great. Well, let's go inside and meet these people.
Okay. Well, right now, Barbara, we've got Spunky, the Trading Post cat, in the picture here, but and he's a little curious about all this material. He loves to go and play, meet everybody.
Well, absolutely. Hi there, Spunky. Welcome to Focus on Art.
And I'll get him out of the way in just a second, but first I want to introduce you to June Lee. June is
Hi,
Seminole.
Hello.
And
We appreciate your being here for Focus on Art.
Thank you.
And June is going to try to take you through some of the patterns, the names of the patterns, and a little bit of how they put it together, and then show you some final products.
Okay, great. Well, June, they're beautiful
Let me
patterns.
get Spunky out of here for you.
Well, Spunky, we do appreciate this guest appearance. All right, June. Now, this is Seminole work.
Yes, this is what you call Seminole patchwork. And how we do this is by sewing. Usually I start off when I'm going to teach a class is by showing what you can do with cutting out strips, picking out the colors that you want, and sewing the strips together. You can start with 2 or 3. Just pick out the colors that you like. And here's one that has, these two has 4, but they're, see how I did those, they're smaller. And then this one has the larger width in it. And
Now,
you can, okay.
Excuse me, is the narrow or the wide width, does that have anything to do with what kind of end pattern you want, or is this just
Yes,
an aesthetic choice?
No, it decides what you, usually it's what I'm going to be making.
Okay.
So like this pattern here, this strip here that's already made up is, I made this, and this is what we call tiger tooth.
It's a beautiful pattern. So you're cutting across here kind of on the bias and then sewing those together?
You can either cut on the bias or you can cut straight. When we say straight, that means you cut this way.
Okay.
Straight. And when you do that, then you get this effect.
All right, I can see how that works.
But when you cut on the bias, you get this.
June, can we show the back side of this too?
Yes.
Someone might like to see how it's sewn here on the back side. This is amazing. Now, to me, this looks like you probably spent hours sewing this piece together.
I did on this one because every little bit, when you cut this diagonally, about every 5 or 6 cut, I usually take the first piece and lay it here. I don't try to stretch it or anything. I just lay that piece right back to where it lays even with these colors, because when you start sewing this pattern, all of these points have got to be even. When you put it on any garment, then it will all look the same.
Now, these patterns are really traditional patterns too. Okay.
Now, most of these are traditional patterns. Like this is what we call our turkey tail design, and you can make your patterns larger. As you see, I've got 3 sizes here.
All right.
And use any color you want. It depends on what colors you want. If you're making this design, well, you want to, but it starts out with just a strip like I showed at the beginning.
And then just, it's how you cut and fold.
See, because you could use the same strip as this and still make this turkey tail design.
All right, now what do you call this pattern?
This is what we call our family pattern. And it's the 3 in the center is the children you have.
Oh, okay, so
The 3
if you had
colors.
5 children, you'd have 5 colors there?
Yes, if you had 5, you'd have 2 more other colors.
Okay.
You don't count the ones on the end there.
That's mom and dad?
That's mom and dad.
Okay, wonderful idea.
So you call that the, see, just like you would on this one, you'd call it a family pattern also. There's 3 in here. And this pattern here is what we call our broken arrow design.
You named that after a city?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe the city named it after your pattern?
But as I was going to say, all these patterns can be small or large. You can do either way. It depends on what you want.
Okay, now was this sewn in strips too?
Now the only thing that was sewn in a strip on that is the one in the middle, the black and white.
Okay, so then these are individual pieces?
Yes,
Okay, we might turn over and let our viewers have a look at the back side of this, and you can really see how complex the work is. Now you're teaching this to some young people, as I understand.
Yes, I'm teaching at Wewoka Middle School, the 7th and 8th grade Indian students, so that our tradition won't be lost. But out of all of the ones that I'm teaching, I just kind of figure that the 2 will pick this tradition up and go on with it, because I don't expect all of them to take up sewing.
Right. Well, I would think they would be so much more interested in doing something like this with some cultural heritage to it than making that apron that I made when I was in the 7th grade. What is this pattern called?
I think this is Finding the Fire. And see, I've made that pattern larger than this one.
All right, I understand.
And that's the same, but see, I've used different colors except for the red. We use a lot of red, turquoise, yellow. We have what we call our 7 colors that we normally use for our patchwork. And so we try to stay within those colors. But since I do a lot and show a lot of these, like sometimes I show it to non-Indian where they want like pastel colors. So you see there's one here that's got the pastel colors. So we go into a lot of that, and now I said, but there's still a lot of the Indian people that still would stay within these bright colors here.
Okay, well, these are certainly wonderful colors together. I understand why you'd probably prefer to work with these. These are great.
But that's Seminole. I said, when you get all the bright, bold colors together, that's what you call Seminole colors. And here's one of our, this is what we call our deer head pattern. All of these patterns, you can do different colors. You don't have to, you know, just use the colors I have here. And this is the what we call our panther eye.
Oh, that's a handsome pattern.
And you can make them that small. You can make them larger. And I like to make my patterns larger. It don't take so much time.
All right.
And this is what we call our rose pattern. And this one here is what we call our corn basket pattern.
Now, June, this is what you have to do before you can get to a finished product. Is that right?
You have to make a lot of yards of the patchwork before you can start putting it into garments.
How many yards do you have here, June?
I think that's a little over 5 yards there.
Well, and so this would like go around maybe the hem of a skirt?
Mm-hmm. Or a jacket.
Okay.
That's what we call our fire design. Now, the clothes that you see here, the Oklahoma Seminole of back in Wewoka is starting a business, and this is what some of our ladies are doing. You have probably, as you noticed, we have a lot of clothes that comes from Florida with lots of rickrack. But these are the styles of clothing of the Seminole Oklahomas are going to be doing. And so we have already started. We are selling skirts now and have already made 2 or 3 vests. But and right now, I'll go ahead and show you on the vest, the designs on the vest is, this first row is what we call our squash blossom. The medicine bag is the next one. The hunter's belt is the next one. And the challenger is the bottom row. And on the white skirt, you see Everlasting Fire, which is the popular design of our Seminole patchwork. You can see that on a lot of garments. And then the next one here is the turkey tail pattern, made with the same colors because you can use the same strip when you make this pattern. And it's on a purple. And all of most of the material that we use is polyester cotton.
Now, are you making these up and selling them kind of on consignment, or do you take special orders?
No, right now we're just sending them off to the planner for Seminole Nation is the one that has a place for us to sell these right now, because we have bought a load of polyester material and we're trying to pay off our bill right now.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing, is sending these off somewhere else. But we are taking orders, you know, on what, on the jackets, our traditional, I didn't bring one, but on our traditional jackets and vests, usually it usually is just 3 rows, and we try to do, the father's clan is always on the top, the wearer, whoever it is in the middle, what they pick out, and the bottom row is your mother's clan. So we try to figure all of that in, you know.
All right, so it becomes almost an heirloom the minute it's made for a particular family. June, would men and women both wear the vest?
Yes,
All right, well, they're certainly lovely. And then you have some other kind of smaller things here, like the hair bows and
yes,
the men's tie. That's a very attractive tie over there.
Now, I do a lot of these little things like this when I go, you know, I have my own little business that I do, and so when I go off, besides selling clothes and jackets, I said I try to add little things that people might like, because not everybody's going to buy a jacket or skirt. So.
Now, Doug, are you representing June here at Arrowwood?
Well, I just ran into June, and I was just absolutely fascinated by the art form that the Seminoles were doing, and so I just invited June, especially the co-op, trying to get a co-op started with the Seminole Nation would be really great. So I hope to represent her, but right now I just wanted everybody to see her work.
Okay, well, June, it's really lovely. You ladies are doing a great job. We really appreciate your being with us today for Focus on Art.
Well, Meadow.
Thank you. Doug, shall we go and see the Silversmiths?
Great. Barbara, before we visit the artist who we're teaching silversmithing to, I thought this room might be of interest to you.
All right.
This room eventually will become just basically a museum. And but a lot of the items in here belong to Chief Wolfrobe. For example, the display cases were his original display cases that he used in his store.
Did he build these?
Hugh Davis, who was his brother-in-law, built these, and Hugh was also a curator at one time of the Mohawk Zoo. And he was Hugh owned the Blue Whale across the street.
Oh, I didn't realize that they were brothers.
Right.
Okay.
And so inside the case, on this one particular case, we have just some memorabilia, not all of Wolfrobe's, but a lot of it, his old ordering books, sales permits, things like that, and then some photographs of both. And we'll be adding to those from time to time in jewelry. In fact, this ring I have on is a Wolfrobe ring. I bought it from him 22 years ago. So I kind of wear it just to feel a little closer to the trading post.
Absolutely. Okay.
This is the original painting done of Wolfrobe, and this lady, I understand now, has moved from Tulsa to Santa Fe and become quite well known now. Of course, when this was done, she was just starting, and her sister was in one day and explained to me where she was at with her art. So it's kind of an unusual piece.
Now, how did you come by the things in here, Doug?
Some of them were donated, some of them we found in the building that had just been thrown back and were going to be destroyed.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's a good thing you know a treasure when you see it.
One piece we're particularly proud of course, is this is an original painting, and it was donated to the trading post by a gentleman in Washington, D.C. who collects Wolfrobe stuff and knew him. And eventually he said his entire collection, of course, will go to the National Archives. So it's really nice of him to donate that to the Wolfrobe trading post.
Well, I don't think we think of Wolfrobe, the painter, particularly. We always think of him as a silversmith, so I assume that's particularly rare and unusual piece.
It is, and also he was an author. He authored 3 books.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
very talented gentleman.
This was his old original silversmithing bench. Wolfrobe, obviously, this is a different style of painting, and what we think is that A.C. Blue Eagle, who is, of course, quite well known, and a very close friend of Wolfrobe's, did the paintings on the front of his old bench for him.
Wonderful.
So we were able to keep that. So now let's go ahead and we'll go in where the 2 guys are now doing silversmithing work, and we'll take a look and chat with them for a few minutes.
Dan.
Well, this whole area, Barbara, was kind of interesting. His shop was in the adjacent room, and this was his bedroom and living quarters here. This was an apartment.
Okay.
Let me introduce you to Ed and Buster Ratcliffe. They're can't turn around right now, but in just a few minutes we'll have them turn around and say hello. But what they're doing now is building some silver work.
This process he's doing right now.
Okay, if you notice, there's a screen there, and he's using a tool different than the bezel material. So you have to heat the plate up first so that the bezel doesn't melt.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. Mhm.
and then he uses silver solder. The silver solder then attaches the two pieces. Then he'll go ahead and put on different work on that, and then trim off the excess silver, build a pendant out of it,
And a lot of heat for the thicker part of the
right.
piece.
And so you may in fact want to solder a very small item onto a large belt buckle. So you can imagine the amount of heat that you then have to do that. We use acetylene as the in this shop. We use acetylene, which is about 2,500 degrees. That's what they're working at.
Okay, now his next step is going to be what, Ed, to cut off that back?
Well, not yet. I'm gonna wrap some wire around it, around the edges.
You're going to add some doodads to it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I like that word, doodads.
And it might be, he might put some silver balls on here. He might put half round and then stamp the half round. Now you can start getting creative from this point. For example, I'll show you a little bit here. This was one of Ed's first pieces when he was into stamp work. The center of this piece has got a deer's hooves, and coming around the outside of this then would be representative of antlers.
All right, I see that.
Okay, so, and then the feathers themselves. And what we're trying to do, and what I think is really important, is teach our local Indian population the silversmithing so they can put their own traditions and get away from what we call the Southwest look.
Okay.
So we'll have Cherokee jewelry, we'll have Cheyenne jewelry, Arapaho, Creek, Choctaw, tribes that we have in Oklahoma who are predominant now.
All right, so these will be more Plains Indian design motifs.
Plains, five civilized tribes, Oklahoma Indians.
All right.
It'll be our Oklahoma Indians doing the silversmithing. And Buster, who's Ed's brother, this was Buster's very first piece, his first attempt, which I think is exceptional.
Not really his first
Absolute
piece?
first piece.
Hey, this is great.
Okay, we showed him how to do the construction work.
Let's see the kind of over on the side there. Oh, amazing. And this is the bezel, this part right around the stone right here.
That's correct.
And that's what Ed was working
And then
on.
he wrapped a little twisted wire.
Okay.
Okay, added a silver ball just to accent it, I guess. He thought that looked good.
All right.
Then put the shank on and stamped the shank a little bit to add a little bit to the shank.
Let's see that stamping on the shank. Oh, okay, I see right
Very
in here.
simple, very beautiful.
All right, good job.
Okay.
Yes.
Now that's the first phase of silversmithing. This is what we call beginner's work. Okay.
Well, beginners do pretty good work.
Here's another one of Ed's pieces.
Oh, that's a handsome piece.
Isn't that nice? Just all silver.
Let's look right on the inside right here for a minute, Doug. Is this, what are these little letters and numbers that we
Well,
have?
that says ER, Ed Ratcliffe.
Okay, so that's his signature.
That's right. So we'll have him signature each piece so that when somebody buys it, they'll know who the artist was. Okay?
Well, Ed, I bet people are going to be coming in soon asking for your particular pieces.
I hope so.
I think this piece is particularly nice. And if you notice right here, he put a little bear claw right into the silver work itself. You see that?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay. Instead of just putting around the stamp work around it, he went and added a little bit more.
Oh, it's all those little personal things that make this a work of art rather than
Oh,
just
yeah.
another piece of jewelry.
Well, yeah, I think most people agree that most of the Indian artists put a lot into the work.
Doug, I noticed that the stone in that was very free form. It wasn't polished down to a smooth oval. Also,
Right.
the ring that you have from Wolf Robe is the same type of stone. Is that typical of Oklahoma Indian silversmiths?
Well, it's typical of the way I teach. I like the stone free-forming. If you look at this, it's kind of got two different things. I free-formed these three stones, but then I cut these stones to fit in around it. So I match silver, but I like the free-form designs.
Yeah, but they really are gorgeous. I don't think you see this so much in Southwest jewelry.
No, not really. This is more what they call, this is not my piece, but this is more what we call Southwest type jewelry.
Well, I certainly think we see something evolving that's Oklahoma, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm real proud. And this is the apprentice program, and we're going to try to expand this and get as many of the local art students who are Indian into these programs. Ed's wearing a particularly nice piece on his wrist. Ed, let me see that piece, and I'll kind of show it off a little bit because there's an awful lot of stamp work. Or you can kind of, why don't you describe the piece, Ed?
Well, when I was thinking, this is a bear. He's coming out of the woods. So he walks up to dance in the moonlight.
Great, Ed, great. And how about out here on the edges? What kind of design motifs do you have there?
That's just, I don't know really. Just a design.
Just designs, okay.
Just designs.
You know, and a lot of that stamp work, you know, you say that, but it's kind of something that you start feeling into the piece. In other words, you start visualizing maybe what the stamp work around the piece would kind of move into the piece a little bit, okay?
All right, so your particular design motifs would be your particular design motifs.
Now, you saw Ed's designs, and then you saw Buster's one design, and his piece will start evolving as soon. He's about a month behind Ed.
And what are you working on now?
I'm making this is going to be a bracelet. I'm putting something in here to make a noise. It's for a little girl.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Is this your little girl?
She
or?
has the Down syndrome,
I see.
and she doesn't hardly move her arms. And with this, maybe she would start moving her arms if she, you know, if she could hear this. So I'm saying then I'm going to put the stone on top of this.
Oh, wonderful. Let's see. You want to set that little stone up there? We can maybe get an idea. Okay, that's going to be great when you get it finished. Well, Doug, we're almost out of time here.
Well, let me show you one quick thing. This is what Ed made for Pam's 40th birthday. See around her neck? Ed, we all explain that real quick? Kind of over the mountains there?
Yeah.
Not over the mountain.
Is that the over the hill piece?
That's it.
It's not being over the hill. When you get, I guess when you get 40 years old, you'd have a lot of wisdom.
All right. For those of you that don't know, Pam is Mrs. Doug Jennings. So Pam, I guess you get to wear lots of wonderful jewelry and have a great experience here at Arrowoods. Okay, well, Doug, thank you so much. We appreciate being here at Arrowoods.
Thank you, Barbara. As usual, it's been a pleasure. Come back and see us.
For those of you at home, we appreciate your being with us as always.